I'm Edward Black. I'm 67 years old. And lately I've been waking up with this feeling that something inside me waited too long to speak, and now it's speaking all at once. I'm not telling this because I want sympathy. I'm telling it because there isn't much time left to keep pretending I don't hear it. Most mornings now are quiet. Not the peaceful kind people talk about when they imagine retirement. It's a thinner quiet. The kind that feels like a room after everyone's left and the chairs are still warm. I'm closer to the end than the beginning. That's not dramatic. It's just accurate. My doctor says things like manage and monitor. My body says other things when I stand up too fast. Time doesn't announce itself. It just starts closing doors you assumed would stay open. What I didn't expect was how loud my own longing would become when everything else got quiet. I spent most of my life minimizing it, shrinking it, calling it impractical, indulgent, something to deal with later. I was very good at that. I treated my own wanting like a child tugging at my sleeve while I was busy doing important things. I'd pat it on the head and say, "Not now." Later. Later became a habit. Then a personality. Then a life. When I was younger, I would have described myself as responsible, reliable, someone you could count on. I showed up. I paid bills. I didn't abandon people. Those things are true. They're not lies. But they're not the whole truth either. In my 20s, I believed life was something you set up properly before you lived it. You laid the foundation first. Work hard. Be sensible. Don't get distracted. Desire was something you indulged after you earned it. I didn't come from money. My father worked at a paper mill until his lungs gave out. My mother kept a ledger in her head of what everything cost. I learned early that wanting too much was dangerous. Wanting the wrong thing was worse. So when I felt that pull, toward art, toward travel, toward people who made me feel awake instead of stable, I translated it into something safer. I told myself I was just tired, or restless, or ungrateful. I took a job in logistics after college. It paid well enough. It was steady. I told myself I liked the order of it. Spreadsheets, timelines, predictability. The days stacked neatly, one like the next. There was a woman then. Her name was Claire. She laughed with her whole body, as it surprised her every time. She talked about moving to New Mexico to paint. She asked me once, very gently, what I wanted. I remember the moment. We were in her car, parked outside my apartment. The engine was off. The radio was still playing softly. She looked at me like she really wanted to know. I said something practical. I don't even remember exactly what. Probably about stability, or saving, or being realistic. She nodded. She didn't argue. A month later, she left. I told myself it was for the best. I told myself I wasn't the kind of person who could follow a feeling across the country. That was the first time I remember consciously minimizing my own longing. I felt it then, sharp and clear. And I chose to shrink it until it fit inside the life I'd already decided to live. It didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like maturity. In my 30s, life filled in. Marriage, kids, mortgage, a title at work that came with a bigger office and less sunlight. My days became crowded in a way that made questioning them feel rude. I loved my children. I still do. That's not something I'm uncertain about. But love doesn't cancel out absence. You can love deeply and still not be present in the way you meant to be. I was always tired, or busy, or distracted. I told myself this was just the season of life. Those things would slow down later. That I'd have more space then. I missed school plays. Not all of them, just enough. I was late to dinners. Not egregiously, just enough that it became expected. I brought work home. I answered emails at the table. I was there, but part of me was always leaning towards something else. And that something else wasn't even joy. It was approval, security, the quiet relief of being seen as dependable. My wife used to say, "You don't have to carry everything alone." I would nod and keep carrying it. Letting go felt irresponsible. Rest felt like cheating. When I felt that old longing, the one that wanted to sit on the floor with the kids, or take a day off just because, or say no to another promotion, I labeled it selfish. I minimized it. I told myself it would pass. It didn't pass. It just learned how to be quiet. The cost didn't show up all at once. It leaked in. A missed conversation here. A postponed trip there. Promises made to myself that expired without notice. My daughter stopped asking me to come to things before I noticed she'd stopped. My son learned early that if he wanted my attention, he had to schedule it. I didn't mean for that to happen. I was proud of being needed elsewhere. At work, I was respected. People listened when I spoke. My name carried weight in meetings. I told myself that mattered. And it did. Just not in the way I thought it would later. By my 40s, I had everything I was supposed to want. And a low-grade ache I couldn't name. Sometimes it would surface late at night. I'd sit in the living room after everyone was asleep, the TV on but muted, and I'd feel this pressure in my chest. Not pain. Something closer to grief, but without an object. I'd think about the guitar I never learned to play. The places I bookmarked but never visited. The conversations I rushed through because I was already thinking about the next obligation. I told myself this was normal. That everyone felt this way. That it was ungrateful to want more when you already had enough. Minimizing longing became second nature. I did it automatically, like adjusting a thermostat. Too much feeling. Turn it down. Then my mother died. Quietly. In her sleep. She was 78. I flew back home for the funeral. Walked through the house I grew up in. Everything smaller than I remembered. The hallway is narrow. The ceiling's low. I found her old ledger in a drawer. Notes in her careful handwriting. Lists of groceries. Bills. There was a page at the back where she'd written, "Someday I'd like to see the ocean." She never did. She lived 2 states away from it her whole life. That should have shaken me more than it did. Instead, I folded the page back into the drawer and went back to my life. I told myself there was still time. Time is the most generous lie we tell ourselves. It doesn't demand proof. It just sits there, nodding, until it doesn't. The turning point came later. Later than I wish. My wife got sick. Not suddenly. Slowly. A diagnosis that came with charts and percentages and words like manage. I sat beside her in waiting rooms. I held her hand while machines hummed. I watched her world shrink, appointment by appointment. One afternoon, she looked at me and said, "Do you ever wish we'd done things differently?" She wasn't accusing me. She wasn't angry. She was tired, curious, like she was flipping through a photo album and noticing the empty spaces. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to say a lot of things. Instead, I said, "We did the best we could." She smiled. A small smile. She didn't say anything else. She died 2 years later. After the funeral, the house felt enormous and hollow at the same time. I moved from room to room like a guest who'd overstayed his welcome. All the things we'd postponed together, trips, conversations, rest, hung in the air like unanswered questions. That's when the longing came back full force. Not as a whisper, as a weight. It wasn't about specific things anymore. It was about presence. About the way I'd been half there for my own life, always bracing for some future moment when I'd finally relax into it. That moment never arrived. What can't be fixed is hard to talk about. People prefer stories of redemption, of late blooms, of second chances. Those exist. I don't deny that. But there are also things that are simply gone. I can't go back and sit on the floor with my kids when they were small. I can't answer Claire's question differently. I can't take my wife to the places we talked about when we were too tired to go. I can't reclaim the years I spent treating my own longing like an inconvenience. That's the part that hurts the most. Not the failures, the delays. I assumed there would always be more time to feel fully, to choose differently, to let myself want what I wanted without apology. Now, time feels precious in a way it never did before. Each day has an edge to it. I notice things I rushed past for decades. The way light moves across the wall. The sound of my own breathing when the house is quiet. I talk to my kids more now. They're kind to me. Busy. They have their own lives. I don't blame them for the distance. I taught them how to live without me being fully present. Loneliness in old age isn't always about being alone. Sometimes it's about finally being still enough to hear yourself. If you're listening to this, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I don't know your life. I don't know your responsibilities or fears. I only know what it feels like to reach this age and realize how often you minimize the very thing that made you feel alive. Longing isn't greed. It isn't a weakness. It's information. It tells you where your life wants to go. I spent decades treating it like noise. If I could speak to my younger self, I wouldn't tell him to quit his job or abandon his family or chase every impulse. I'd tell him to listen more carefully. Do not dismiss that quiet pull so quickly. To understand that responsibility and presence aren't opposites. I'd tell him that success feels different when you're old. That approval fades. That's what remains. Moments. Conversations. Times you chose to be there even when it was inconvenient. I don't have many years left. That's not a complaint. It's a fact. I'm trying to live them more honestly now. Slower. With fewer excuses. Some days, I still catch myself minimizing. Old habits die hard. But I notice it now. I pause. Sometimes I let the longing speak. This isn't a warning. It's a confession. If this meant something to you, you don't need to do anything with it. Just sit with it for a moment. That might be enough. As for me, I'll finish my coffee. I'll watch the tree outside the window. And I'll keep telling the truth to myself, even if it comes late. That's what I have left. And it's quieter than I expected. But it's real.